Good evening, and welcome to the School District of Haverford. School District of Haverford Township's Curriculum Committee meeting on April 28th, 2022. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I got stuck there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I will turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Jen Saksa.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Wiedemann. We're happy this evening to have several items on our agenda, and we will begin tonight with an overview regarding the Delaware County Intermediate Units services that they provide to us in particular, but also to services that all intermediate units provide across the Commonwealth. And here to kick us off is Dr. Maria Edelberg, who is the Chief Executive of the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you for having us. Also with me is Dr. Stephen Butz. He is the Director of the Career and Technical Education Center, and Dr. Joyce Monday, who is the Assistant to the Executive Director for Teaching and Learning, and they're going to make a couple comments as well. I just want to orient you to your packet, because on your packet, if you open it up, you will have what's in there called DCIU supports to Haverford Township School District. And then behind it is the PowerPoint. And some of this material is really for you to peruse at your pleasure. But one of the key things about this document is all the services that we're providing that touch Haverford Township School District is located in this document. So it's just something, I'll try to do some linkages as we go through the presentation, but I wanted you to be aware of such. Okay. So we're going to do a quick overview of the IU, Student Services, Career and Technical Education, and I hear there's probably better speakers for Career and Technical Education a little bit later, so we're looking forward to hearing that as well, teaching and learning, and then if you have any questions. But I wanted to start with the overview of the IU, and we actually came about in 1970 through what's called Act 102. And one of the connections, if we think about how IUs were created and how they are funded, there was a component when Act 102 came out that talked about how a proportionate share of the dollars to fund an intermediate unit will be part of the general education budget. So when you go past the general education budget and you see a certain amount in there for the Delaware County Intermediate Unit, all that is driven through a formula that came about through Act 102. And one of the big concepts around intermediate units when they were formed is they really tried to envision intermediate units to have a scale, that we could pull together certain services for the county or looked at shared services. We would have economies of scales and in the long run create opportunities for saving some dollars. One of the things, and we also, I don't know how I skipped so fast. I have fast fingers tonight. You know what I think it is? I'm going in the wrong direction. That's what happens. Give me a clicker and I just don't know what to do. Okay. And then as we go along, and I think everybody's familiar with the school code. The school code tends to continue to add to, it doesn't really take anything away. And that's the same thing with intermediate units. And so in 1975, there was an amendment. And of course, there's been some amendment as well along the way. But the big amendment in 1975 is really dealing with non-public schools. And I'll talk a little bit about that. The other thing that's really important, the IU has no independent taxing authority. Any dollars that the IU is generating is coming through either our programs and services or through grants that we would get through federal funding, state funding. So I think that's another key piece, that all of the dollars that we come in, it is really through other funding except for the proportionate share that the districts provide based on Act 102. And so that has really created systems where they want us to be, entrepreneurial. What services can we provide so that we can keep our cost lower because other services are coming in. And I will go through some of the services that we're providing, and I think we'll be able to show some of those entrepreneurial ways that we're working with our county and beyond. So a big component of what we do is around pupil services, student services, special education, and early childhood. And I want to spend a little time on early childhood. And if you just want to follow along, you don't have to read this now, but I'll point out there's a section of early childhood education, and you can see some of the connections of our early childhood program with Haverford Township School District. And so we operate early Head Start, pre-K counts, family centers, as well as early intervention. And so when we look at family centers and Project Elect, family centers is through a contract that we have with our county, and we work in various areas, and we're really targeting some of the lower economic areas in Delaware County. And the whole goal for the family centers is to wrap families with information, support, and how to access support. And so we'll do toddler groups, we'll do parenting groups for our youngest children. And most of the families that are involved in the family center have children 4 years of age and younger. The other program that we do operate is Project Elect. And the Project Elect programs targets mothers, pregnant teens, moms who just had babies, and also a father component. So I have to say we have children as young as in middle school, but through high school. And the real goal of this program is how do we wrap a mom with support so that we can get her to graduate, because we know outcomes for mothers, especially teen mothers, without their high school diploma has lifelong consequences. And then the other component that we do look at through the Project Elect is how do we work with fathers, because we know there's a big disconnect sometimes when teens become fathers to stay in that child's life. So that is the focus of the program for Elect. And then we have, and I just want to talk a little bit about early intervention when we're looking at kind of the whole system. In Delaware County, DCIU provides early intervention services in the catchments of 14 of the 15 school districts. We do not provide early intervention services to children in Chester. There's a different MAWA. They call that a MAWA. We're the LEA. We serve about 2,100 children, and these are children from the age of 3 to the age of 5 each year. And we also are serving children in an IU program, but most of our children are either itinerant or in preschool. And we serve children in over 300 preschools in Delaware County. So it really is a huge operation. And what you can see on the flyer is there's 121 young kiddos that live in the Haverford catchment that's involved in our program. And then we have 67 students that have the option of transitioning to kindergarten for their kindergarten year. And one of the things about early intervention in the regulations, what it says is a child who is kindergarten eligible, the family has the choice whether or not they want to move their child to kindergarten or keep their child in early intervention, what they call their kindergarten year. And so, this is a program where we really hope to develop some skills so when they enter school that they're that much more advanced and hopefully be able to be integrated into the regular education program with minimal supports. But if they do need significant amount of supports, some of that work has already started. And then another piece is what we call the Birth to 3 program, which is run by the county. But the Delaware County Intermediate Unit provides services for our babies under 3 who are visually impaired and deaf and hard of hearing. So it's not uncommon, a child is 2 weeks of age and we're getting a call and we're in that home. And then we also provide the hearing services in Chester County as well. A big piece of what we do provide is special education programming for many county students who have those really significant needs or the type of needs that, like a hearing and language program, that you're dealing with a low incident. However, the level of support is pretty significant. So I'm just going to give some examples. And again, under student services, where it says programs HTS students participate in, you're going to see a breakdown of how we're connected and the students that we're serving in these programs from a numbers. But when we look at our emotional support programs, we do have behavioral health. We have psychiatrists, counselors in those programs, so we can wrap a child as young as the age of 5 all the way up to, and typically kids in our emotional support programs stay till 18 or 19, with the level of mental health and behavioral health supports that they need to be able to continue to access education to get them to graduation. You know, one of the programs that is really well known, and in fact, we get a lot of students not only from Delaware County, but surrounding counties, but also outside of the state, is our hearing and language program. We were one of the first when we had the rubella epidemic, and this is where we saw a lot of increase in students with hearing loss because of rubella, and we were one of the first, I think we were actually the very first program that actually approached to an oral way of looking at hearing and language, right? A hearing impaired child. We are an oral program. And as we start to advance now, we have cochlear implants. The technology has changed, and I think options for families have really changed. But that program, we even get international folks to come down and take a look, because that's how significant and some of the things that we've done. And we were one of the first IUs to actually have an audiological booth. Actually, we were the first in the Southeast region. So we also provide audiological services. I'm not going to go through all of these, so don't worry. We also do a lot of work with what we call our mobile support team. And really what that is districts have different needs. So they'll send in a need. And if it's not a program we have, what we say is, how can we grab a team together? What is it that they need? How do we build the right team to then partner with the district to figure out what those next steps could be? So we've done things along the lines of a district wanting to open a program, but they wanted to pretty quickly. They didn't have the personnel, so we opened the program within the district, and within a year or 2 years, we transitioned everybody back over to the district. We've helped to do coaching and support for opening programs. 2, we need a specific type of evaluation, and we'll do that evaluation. So it runs the gamut, but again, we really try to specialize the skills that are needed based on the request of the district. The other big service is Act 89, and that is the state-run program, and we talked about that came back in 1975. And the way Act 89 works is we have to consult with all the non-public schools, and then there's a list of services based on that consultation that we provide. And I think what's different about Act 89, when I talk a little bit about the services, principals of those schools kind of determine what students are going to be accessing these services. So we provide reading remediation, math remediation, counseling, psychological services, as well as speech and language in the younger grades. But just like anything else, it's proportionate the amount of service a non-public school would receive. And then the principal is really the key one. And a lot of times they'll have a team together to say, here are the students that are the most needy for remedial reading. And then they're the students that get it. This is not an entitlement program like you would see for special education. And I think that is a really big issue, because if you're needing remedial reading or speech and language, in a non-public school through Act 89, it could potentially be a child find issue, but it's not special education. And then there was, when IDEA was reauthorized, there's this thing called equitable participation. You're not going to find equitable participation, the actual language, in IDEA. They'll be talking about a proportional share into the non-public schools. And what PDE did when they did Chapter 14, they actually said, you're the LEA for equitable participation. So what we have done is work in conjunction with the school. So if a parent says, I think my child has special education needs, we'll work with the district. If the district can do the evaluation, great. If not, we'll do the evaluation. But we really try to partner with our districts, because if a child is found to be exceptional, at that point, the IU's obligation through equitable participation is done. Our only obligation is child find. We are not the provider or offerer of FAPE. So it's not uncommon that an evaluation is done. We always ask the family if we can share it if we do it. Parents have a right to say no, but for the most part, I think we've only had a few handful of cases where that didn't happen. The district would get the evaluation, and then this way the district can meet their obligation to at least offer FAPE. So I'm going to turn this over to Stephen, and then he'll turn it over to Joyce, and then I'll be back if you have any questions.
Hello. So I'm going to touch upon a couple items related to career and technical education. And first I have to figure out, there we go, very good. So at our two campuses that we have secondary programs, we have 21 secondary programs at Aston and Fallcroft campus. 23 programs together just because of culinary is at both campuses, and also cosmetology is at both campuses. We also have medical careers programs that are at 7 hospitals. Our total enrollment right now for high school students is right around 1,186 students. A significant increase this past year, about 140 students compared to the previous year. At our Marple Center, we have a practical nursing program that currently has about 62 adult students, and it's a 1-year program. That program was recently recognized by Georgetown University in a national study. Looked at all post-secondary programs and degree granting programs. And our practical nursing program was first in the state of Pennsylvania on return on investment, which was definitely a big award and accomplishment. So we are quite proud of that. And basically what that's saying is over 10 years, our students that leave us are able to get jobs in hospitals and nursing homes in this area. And healthcare is very important and is compensated fairly nicely in this area, and they can take what they have learned from us and apply it over the next 10 years and move up into other career pathways or stay within that career pathway and do very nicely for themselves. So that was a nice recognition of our adult program. Looking ahead for post-secondary programs, looking ahead for our secondary program next year, we are currently in our application process. We've received about 1,300 applications for this year. Out of that number, we'll probably accept around 650 to 700 students, and estimating our enrollment for next year will be up about 150 students or so to right around our capacity, which is around 1,400 students. So, a couple items related in your handouts. There's a document that has a listing of your students and some of the accomplishments. We'll highlight first on the NOCTI exams, the last 2 years that we have offered it in 2021 and also 2019. All the students in the 2019, 33 out of 33 students were considered competent or advanced on the NOCTI test. The NOCTI test is an occupational and end of a program test for each of our career and tech areas. Our senior students just wrapped up the testing or are in the process of wrapping up the testing right now. And we expect that Haverford students have done quite well this year also. 2021, 28 out of the 33 students at that time were advanced or competent on the NOCTI. The enrollment over the last year has gone up slightly. So the average enrollment gained between 21 and 22 school year about 7 students. Now that's the 3-year average. This year the enrollment's about 100 students. So there will be again a slight increase next year at this time. In terms of student recognitions, and they're not obviously on the PowerPoint, but you can read through some of the recognitions that individual students have gotten. Their names are provided to the school board members. In terms of the HOSA, which is Future Health Professions state winners. You had 3 in the last 2 years. You have at least, I believe, 2 students that potentially can go to the national competition in Nashville this year. So we'll see if that, if they choose to go, and if they want to participate in that competition in Nashville. Skills USA, Haverford has done quite well. 10 students participated in Skills USA and won medals at the state competitions last year and this year. So actually regional, sorry, getting ahead of myself, won medals at the regional competition, which is Delaware, Montgomery, Bucks, Philadelphia counties. So that's quite impressive. Plus 20 students were inducted over the last 2 years into the National Technical Honor Society. So a lot of real good students coming to us from Haverford, a lot of things for the school board and for the administrators here to be very proud of. We are anticipating next year the enrollment probably will be a little bit over 100 students for Haverford School District, and some very good applications, some very good students that we are anticipating inviting in for next year. So thank you very much, and I believe we have at least one student here that's to provide some additional information. Now, Dr. Mundy.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having us. I'm just going to talk for a moment about, let's see if this goes the right way, the Teaching and Learning Department, which is my part of the house at DCIU. We have a team of almost 30 professionals. Our supervisors and administrators on the team have worked in educational leadership in districts, at the university level, and also at DCIU. So we're very excited to have that capacity. We also have different types of trainers on the team. We have what are called training and consultation. Those folks work with the Pennsylvania Department of Education on special education training, really stay up to date and bring things back to serve our districts and programs. And we also have professional development specialists who work in curriculum, instruction, assessment, and their expertise is really thinking about, kind of learning in the entire educational setting. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we provide. As I do so, if it's helpful, because I'll give sort of a high-level view, in this brochure here under Teaching and Learning, you can see some of the applications and the ways that we enjoy working with Haverford. So thinking about a lot of the work that we have been doing in the last set of years, we've been focused quite a bit on systems leadership, working with both schools, districts, and our own DCIU programs on thinking about strategic planning and strategic thinking. And that's been particularly true this year and last year as we're all taking a look at how we operate and what we're doing and where to. So our team spent a lot of time on doing program reviews, sending our teams in to work with administrators and educators, learn what's happening in programs, and providing districts with really comprehensive reports that are data-based, research-based, and will hopefully present a roadmap to support administrators as they're making decisions. We've done those in areas, all the 4 core subjects: gifted education, special education, instructional technology, equity, social emotional learning, mental health, many different areas. A large bucket that we've been working from is multi-tiered systems of support. And I use that term broadly. It's really the umbrella for everything that we do. Academic, behavioral, how are we supporting students, meeting them where they are, and how are we supporting educators to understand how to meet all of the unique needs of our learners. K-12 curriculum design has been a large focus as we, before COVID, during COVID, thinking about as we moved into various modalities of instruction and assessment, and since how we leverage that to be even stronger. And our countywide coalitions, we provide a space for many groups throughout the county to meet. So that could include curriculum directors, our principals, we have principals groups, counselor groups. We have an equity coalition of administrators that meet from across the county. So it just gives you an idea, a sample of that. The second bucket I would share with you tonight is around coaching and development. We spend a lot of time and we send our teams of people really thinking about their expertise and how they can go into schools, classrooms, teams, and really bring coaching opportunities, job embedded, and not one and done, not the standalone, we come in, we do PD, but really thinking about how we can provide professional learning for districts and for schools. We run parent community events throughout the county. We've been doing a bit of work on data models to support multi-tiered systems of support. So there's been a lot that's been really advanced around using data. And the last bucket I want to talk about is inclusive practices for all learners. So our team has spent quite a bit of time the last few years working with our Equity Coalition, which is our administrators, but also thinking about how do we have conversations around inclusivity, equity, diversity, dignity, and belonging. And so I wanted to draw your attention in your packet. I just brought two other things to share with you. And on the left side of your folder, I think it's the last paper in there, second to last. I just wanted to highlight this before I finish my comments this evening. This is called Delco Under Construction, and it's brought to you from the Delaware County Student Forum. We started in 2019, and this really grew out of work that the superintendents did directly with Dr. Edelberg to say, how are we going to have all of these conversations around school climate, equity, dignity, and belonging, incorporate more student voice? So we convened a group. All 15 districts have participated. Haverford is certainly there at the table. They have met for 18 months, first on Zoom, because we started right before. We brought them back in person this year, and the culminating event is this symposium that they're going to do on May 18th. Extremely exciting, student-led. They've worked with community mentors. The students they cannot wait to bring everybody in to hear the work that they've done. So I share this with you this evening so that you know that that's happening. We're very excited. The other piece that I brought to share, we do have a STEM summer camp coming up. So I thought if people did not yet register or make plans, we have space still here. So please feel free to take advantage of that. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We appreciate the opportunity to be with the board, providing an overview. Really proud to be the executive director with a pretty phenomenal team doing really great work. So I'm happy to take questions if anybody has questions. Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Yeah. We are going to have some questions. We're just gathering our thoughts here.
Just a couple, thanks. Thank you for this presentation. This is really fantastic. And I think it's really helpful too for the newer school board members who might not know all the different services, very comprehensive services that the DCIU provides. So thank you. I had two quick questions just for clarification. For the career and technical education programs that are being offered at the high school level, do students, it sounded like students apply for those programs? So it's sort of like a selective, competitive kind of process, or like what does that look like?
The students apply. So students apply, by and large, over the last several years, students, we have not had too many students apply to over-enroll. This year we do. So the vast majority of the students meet our criteria. Mainly it's a decent grade, so C average is fine. Attendance coming on a regular basis. Issues around COVID are definitely factored in, and decent behavior issues around COVID are definitely factored in there also. But by and large, the students get in. It's more a wait list issue in terms of space in the program, and for that we have to do a random basis for that. So by district, if Haverford has for electrical 10 students that apply and we can only take 3 or 4, we'll be out of the people that meet our criteria. The students, by and large, it will be everybody meets our criteria, and then it will be a random process for the students to actually get in. Generally, last year, most students were off of our wait list by the end of the summer. I still anticipate that. We went to an online application process this year. I think We got more applications because it was a new process, but I think we'll sort through most of our wait list by the end of the summer. So.
And do most of the students that do those programs, like, is it students that are seeking a particular, like accreditation or certification, or is it just anybody who's interested in taking even just like a course can do that as well?
So it is a program specific, so we do not offer just a individual course. They come in for a year, and our programs run about 2.5 hours per day. And so it's considerable time, about 3 credits at the sending district. We don't offer students to just come in for one course. They're with us the entire year, and often for 11th and 12th grade, or 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of times students come in with a passion, but we've had students, like I'm thinking of this one student who's graduating this year. He's in our electrical program, but he's going on to college to be a psychologist. But it was a passion that he had. CTE is an elective course, and he was fulfilling his passion.
That's exciting. Cool. And I just had one other question about the special education and early intervention services. Are they all offered at the DCIU building in Aston, or are they offered at various locations?
We're all over the county. Most of our services are actually in the preschools in what the children attend. And I said, like, we're in 300 preschools in our county. We have what we call itinerant services, and you think about more outpatient type, somebody coming for physical therapy, speech therapy. We do that at the Marple Center, the Aston Center, as well as a center in Sharon Hill. And in the next 2 years, we're going to be pivoting to do that at the Fallcross Center. Then we have different inclusive programs throughout the county, as well as running for our most complex needs babies. I call them our babies, right? 3 or 5 babies. And we do have some specialized classes.
Thank you.
So thank you for all the information that you've shared. Certainly sounds like there's lots of great work that's taking place there. I do have a question regarding the teen parent program that you mentioned. So the focus, of course, is to get them, their high school diploma. We know all of the literature that's provided there and concerns that arise, but are there other services offered, whether it's socio-emotional support, behavioral health, even type of job training or additional things a part of that program?
So what that program, there's counselors that will work with the student. Okay. And so what we really try to do is, yes, it's kind of their mentor to get through, but the counselor really works to say, what other connections do we need to make? So it's not uncommon. Sometimes they won't have health insurance, right? And so how do we get them enrolled maybe in the CHIP program or another program? For some of our families that might have a teen parent who is also of a socioeconomic area, can we get him into the early Head Start program? So we can wrap him with an early Head Start in Delaware County is both home-based services as well as center-based services. So how can we wrap with there? We have partnerships with the various other organizations. So is it a parent who's having difficulty with nursing? How do we hook them up with that organization? So the counselor really becomes a personal individual to help provide some of the social emotional supports, but a big part of their job is also to how do we get these kids connected so that they have the right supports, we can have a healthy mom, healthy baby, and get them to graduate.
Excellent. And so you've answered part of my next question, which
Okay.
was how long are these students a part of the program? How long do we follow them until we feel like you're ready for the next part of life?
We typically follow a student until they graduate.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon for a mom to have a 4-year-old and we're still touching base with them. Our real goal is helping them to also develop the skill sets that they don't need us, because if they can manage with just touching base with us, we've done our job, right? And so that's really what the goal is, how we also develop moms who can navigate systems, because we know how difficult that is. How do we get them to continue to get connected and really become their own advocate for whatever they need? And then from a job piece, yes, we'll help with OVR if we need OVR. If they need to get a job, that's one of the things the counselors will help them look for a job. But I can tell you, most of our moms, it's really hard, one, to raise a baby, two, stay in school, get your work done, and work. But it is something that we are there to help coach, to help support, and also if we need to help connecting with wraparound supports for success.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just had a quick clarifying question, piggybacking off of Dr. Crispin's question. So when you were about that application, so you have a wait list. Does that mean if a student in Haverford applies as a junior, and it's a random process, you can take 3, you have 10, does that mean they'll get priority if it's a year-long course for their senior year? How does that wait kind of work?
Do you want to answer that, Dr. Butts?
So if we have a student that has applied the previous year, we do recommend they indicate that on the application so that we're aware of it. And as for seniors, we recognize we'll have some space, students leave us, or a student decides not to come back to us. So we will be able to bring some students in as seniors, but we also can't always bring, the student can't finish the program often if they come in a year later. But we do have seniors routinely starting with us, and also have a Med Careers program, which is mainly seniors.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate this presentation, and I think part of the request to have you come was from the finance side when we were asked to approve the budget, and questions came up about, well, what all kind of services do we get, and how is that done? So appreciate all the context behind the financial support that we provide. And this might be more of a question for our superintendent here. I'm interested, it sounds like there's a lot of coordination, both in terms of the way that the IU services work with our students, but then also as we think about strategically what programs that we're offering. And I was just curious what the work with the IU looks like on our end, and what kind of, who on the team is doing that kind of coordination and strategic thinking.
So specifically, a lot of that would go between Mr. Donaghy and Ms. Saksa in terms of what are the programs that we are able to offer in our schools, and what are the programs that maybe for cost efficiencies, or the numbers of students, that we don't have a large number of students. Like if we have 3 students in the electrical or the engineering course, it's more effective for us to have those students participate in the tech school program. But there may be some of the newer courses that we have offered because of student interest that may also be offered at the tech school, but our students are staying at Haverford for that. So a lot is between Mr. Donaghy and Ms. Saksa's offices.
Thanks. Were you gonna add on to that? I just think that is helpful context to coordinate all of this. Is there also an effort among, you described, some, I guess, resource allocation or program allocation? Does that happen among the 15 districts in Delaware County? Like if we have an autism support program and somebody else might have another specialized program, is that
So you're talking consortium type programming.
Great. Is that something that the IU helps oversee the distribution of?
We don't have a lot of that in Delaware County, and frankly, in Delaware County, we have a real space issue, and so you need space to do those things, right? But we do have, for example, Haverford has been a wonderful partner with the IU, and we have space at the high school, and we run a program out of the high school here. We have the same relationship down at Pendelco and Wallingford Swarthmore. So we have lots of different connections, but how are we connected? I think one of the biggest connections is, and Dr. Mundy talked a little bit about it, we have these job-alike groups, and that's really the like positions getting together, being able to share, brainstorm, maybe say, what is an issue that we're going to tackle, and how do we tackle it collectively amongst the whole county, because then you get the wisdom of the strengths people have gained, but also what didn't work so well. And if you're going to start something, how do we avoid that in the future? Or what might we have done differently to make it even stronger? So those connections, I think, are a huge value. And that's not something we talk an awful lot about.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
What's the age range for the summer camp? Out of curiosity.
Is it
It's elementary, right? Is it starting?
1st to 5th?
Okay, great, all right.
Rising first graders?
I don't know.
They're really great. I have fun when I pop in, so I can pretend, but they're really great, and they're pretty phenomenal, and kids love them. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to spend our evening with you.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you
for
all.
coming out, Dr. Edelberg, and for bringing your staff with you.
Well, we are pleased to really add on some additional information to that presentation with our own presentation from Mr. Donaghy about our Haverford High School DCIU technical schools. A little bit more specifics about our students, including getting to hear from 2 students in particular about their experiences. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Donaghy.
Thank you, Ms. Saksa. And you were getting to my PowerPoint, or our PowerPoint. It was great. And my numbers are very similar to DCIU's numbers, so it was good. I was nervous when you pulled the numbers up, but it's such a great program, and I just want to say that up front. And we do also have a Multi-Disabilities Classroom through the DCIU that is in our high school that people don't even know is there. It's symbiotic with everything we do. Students come from many different districts, work with our life skills program. They're in our electives, they're in our cafeteria, they're in our Best Buddies program. So that's a great program, but I am not here to talk about that this evening. I just wanted to give you, and I have RJ Bueller here tonight, and you're going to hear from his twin brother, Jack. He made a video. They're 2 of the stars that are in that go to the IU each day, and in 2 very different programs. So RJ's in the Med Careers program, and his brother Jack's in the electrical program. So both very successful in their paths. So you're going to hear from them this evening. So I just am here to talk about how it looks. How are you in 2 schools in one day? How does that work? So that's the questions I get in the administrative team and the counselors. So these are the different programs that our students are in. Our Med Careers program is very popular. That's for seniors only for us. And then you can see all the other programs that the students are involved with. And we'll kind of talk about how they get into those programs. And what's great is you see they're involved in all the different programs and all the different offerings. And the IU always adds like 1 or 2 programs every couple of years. And it does come out of organic conversations with the different districts. Sometimes they come out, sometimes they do surveys. Sometimes we talk to the principals. So it just comes out of those conversations, what the needs are and how to stay current, with the rest of society. So how do our kids enroll? We have a presentation. The IU comes out in the fall and gives a presentation. We have a Med Careers presentation, and we have a regular presentation of all the other programs. So it's 2 different presentations they do. And then some of the normal channels of communication we do, announcements, emails. They have a very robust website that's at the end of the presentation. That's very easy to see what's going on. There's been a lot of videos lately, so the kids can click on the video, see kind of how things work. And then if a student's unsure if they want to go to the program or not, they can take a visit too. And so what we do is we will coordinate that. Somebody on the administrative team or our counselor who works with the technical schools will coordinate a visit so that it's either a tour or they go for a half a day. So we have different times throughout the year where the students go and do a visit, just like you're going to a college campus or, checking it out and going through the classes with the other students. So they do a shadow day at the schools, and that's very helpful for the students to be able to see what goes on and take the bus to Fallcroft or Aston and just see how things work. And then, just our college and career development. So if a student brings it up, we have many, many students in this district whose parents might own a business that lends to the technical schools. We have many, many people who are in the medical field, in the Haverford Township. So some of this stuff just lends to what they want to do. So in our conversations, either formally or informally with our surveys and our college and career readiness activities, we get to learn about the students. And as they're doing their schedules for next year or planning their schedules, some of the students, say, what is Med Careers? How does that work? And we have those conversations with them. It's a 4-credit course because we're block scheduling. So it's 4 credits for the year, 2-credit course for Med Careers. The tuition is paid for by the district, as you alluded to. It's a commitment for the district, but it's well worth it. Absolutely. Transportation is also provided by the district. The students have to be on the bus by 7 a.m. So that's the commitment by the students also. So we talk to the students about making sure, that if they're in this program, that, there's certain requirements that they have to do that other students may not have to do. But it's well worth it, in the end. And then our Med Careers, and RJ will probably touch on this, they got to get up pretty early, okay? So when I get into work in the morning, the bus is like leaving. So I always feel for those students, but when they come back around 9:30, they're very refreshed and awake. And then some programs do have, you either need tools or uniform. Some of it is a requirement for safety reasons. So we assist as needed, with any, if there's any additional fees or anything they need that, for the coursework there. And then how do we know it's working? You saw the numbers, from the last couple years. Our students do very well there. We had a student come to me today in the lunchroom, and he said he scored first on the welding Donaghy. He was the highest in the class. That's what he said. I haven't verified that yet, but I do believe him. And I believe him, his dad's a welder too. So he's telling me he came in first. His dad's a welder. He wanted to go into welding. Welding's a relatively new program. It's great to see that, and then, so we haven't gotten the scores yet, but the students get the scores. It's great that they also get the scores back quickly, because sometimes with standardized testing, but that's another story. And then we have a counselor liaison, Miss Jones, that works directly with both the schools, Med Careers, because we have, and I'll show you the next slide, some minor challenges because our schedules, we have to align, okay? And there's a lot that goes on in a high school each day. So we want to make sure that the students are getting the best of both worlds at all times. And then we work, the administrators work with the DCIU administrators. So a couple of your questions were the waiting list, like how's the waiting list work? So they call us in the summer and they say, all right, we have an opening. And then what we do is we, call the student and say, okay, they have an opening, but you have to decide. And then we work with the students on the waiting list too to gauge, when the opening occurs, that they're ready to jump on that opportunity. And then most of the students are. Some students might say, I'm not sure, let me wait another year. So we work with the DCIU administrators. We go back and forth. They've done a great job in the last few years of getting more students into the medical careers program and the different hospitals. And we have some students who go to Riddle. We have some students who go to Lankenau. We had students at Bryn Mawr before. Like, so we work with them to try to come up with where the most of our students can go, instead of them going to all different places in like ones or twos. So we work constantly with they text us. It's pretty, it's a good relationship. And then the biggest thing is and you're going to hear from the two experts in a minute, what the students tell us, because we have things coming up and we want to try to match up our calendars to the IU's calendar as best we can. And then we work again with the IU. So if we have a prom and the students might have to miss a day or leave early, or they have NOCTI, the NOCTI exams were last week, so they had to miss stuff at Haverford. We work back and forth to make sure that the students aren't missing anything. So I put missing assemblies up there because our homeroom's at 9 o'clock. We do a lot of assemblies at 9. And then the students would come back and say, oh, we missed the play preview. And we'd say, oh, okay, just go to class. And that wasn't really fair, to them. So we try to, as much as we can, either do an assembly when they get back at 11 o'clock or make sure they get the information if there's anything they missed. But we also say that the IU comes first. So that is such a great opportunity that we don't want you to miss it. So they come to us and say, do I have to go next week when we have senior breakfast? And then we make it, we make a decision. So they're the toughest challenges sometimes. If it's going to snow, if it's not going to snow, if it's a 2-hour delay for us, it's not a 2-hour delay. So Miss Jones and all them do a great job of working with the IU and trying to get ahead of these situations. And then the students, they come back and they tell us what they like. And then we get them to talk to potential students, potential freshmen, sophomores that are interested and are but aren't sure what it's like or where Fallcroft is or Aston. They don't know. So we had to get the experts to kind of talk to them and tell them, how things work. And I believe that's one of the reasons why our numbers are going up, because of the communication from student to student about their experiences. So we have the Bueller brothers with us tonight. So you have like the Bacon brothers. We have the Bueller brothers. So Jack couldn't be here tonight because he's doing his firefighter school. But he's doing a co-op at Advanced Electrical Services. So Jack would go last year in the morning to tech, and then at some point he got a co-op with the electrical services. So now he's getting a paid co-op. He goes in the afternoon to his co-op. He switched to coming to school at Haverford in the morning so that we could make sure that he gets to his co-op in the afternoon. He gets paid. He's getting his credits. He's getting great experience. So it's pretty interesting to see. So you're going to see him on a video.
Hi, my name is Jack Bueller. I'm a senior at Haverford High School, currently enrolled at Aston Votech, studying electrical construction. I started this program my junior year and have continued working my way up to be given the opportunity to work for Advanced Electric. While working with Advanced Electric, I expanded my knowledge in the electrical field. This experience is known as co-op, which is an opportunity where I can get credit from Haverford while spending half of my day in school and the other half working. Not only has this expanded my knowledge in the electrical field, but has also taught me time management and working with such a diverse group. I have firsthand experience of how people depend on us having the knowledge of this trade. Not only do I manage to go to school and work for the electrical company, I am a volunteer firefighter, taking classes during the weeknights and also the weekends to get my Firefighter 1 national certification. Again, I am very fortunate to have this co-op program in the electrical field through Haverford High School to help me with my future job. Thanks.
done.
And now we're going to have RJ come up and just tell you a little bit about his experience in the Med Careers program.
Wow, thanks for that introduction. That was great. Trust me, Jack is more enthusiastic in person, so don't mind that video. It took him an hour to shoot that video, so be appreciative. So I guess talking about med careers, probably the best decision I've made in high school, best class I've taken by far, just best memories made, best experience gained. Everything I talk about is just like amazing about it. There's no bad sides to it whatsoever. It's helped me with my college search. So I've already committed to Penn State, and it's a combined program with Thomas Jefferson Medical School. So I'll be doing 3 years at Penn State and 4 years in medical school at Thomas Jefferson. So it's a shortened year. And that was a process that started way back in, obviously when I had to apply to college, that's when it started back in November. But I had a round of interviews a month later, and then I had a day-long interview where I had to miss school because was interviewed by a current student there and then a administrator at Thomas Jefferson. So it was a long process, tons of essays to write. But I'd say medical careers was a great thing to talk about. I used it in every one of my interviews. I talked about it. They were like, oh my God, that's a program. That's great. And it's nice to say that I had that experience, because a lot of them were like, oh, we've never heard of a program like this, or we've never heard of a student being able to go into an OR, or, shadow a doctor or anything like that. So it was nice being able to talk about it and everything I've gained. And going off of that in med careers specifically, I think that some of the most impactful things that have happened are probably being able to go on clinicals, which we started recently. Usually they start earlier, but because of COVID, we've kind of had to take more precaution. But now we're able to actually go out and do clinicals, which is essentially every one of us is assigned a different department throughout the hospital, and we're able to go and shadow the doctor for the entire day. Now that NOCTI's over, we're getting 2-3 days a week when we're doing this. And today specifically was actually one of the clinical days, which was really nice. And I was in the OR, which was an experience that a lot of high schoolers don't usually have whatsoever. So it was pretty big and it was pretty cool. You don't get to see that every day. And I mean, what I saw today was a guy he went under anesthesia. They were like, he's out. They're putting a line in his neck. And then all of a sudden he starts lifting his hands and talking. And I'm like, he's not out. He's not out. So it's definitely one of those things where you're like, I appreciate being able to have this experience, being able to talk about it with other people and being able to put it down I did this or I gained this experience. I know what I like, what I don't like. And along with that, we've had a lot of guest speakers. Every week since the beginning of the year, we've had at least 1 or 2 or even more guest speakers a week, essentially where med careers, all the classes will come together, whether that be on Zoom, whether that be in the Lincoln Hall auditorium, and we'll have guest speakers from various different fields. We've had anesthesiologists, we've had PAs, we've had nurses, we've had surgeons, everyone you can think of we've had, and they all kind of talk about their experience, how they got to what they are doing now. And it's nice to hear firsthand from them, because it's a lot of us are some of us have, family members who are also in the medical field. But for me specifically, and a lot of other people, we don't have anyone who's in the medical field. So it's nice hearing firsthand from doctors how they got to where they are, and the things you need to do, the classes you need to take, what you should major in, and that it's okay to make mistakes along the way. I think one of the most important things I learned was actually last week during an anesthesiologist. She was talking to us and saying how she was actually in the program that we were in a few years back. And now she's an anesthesiologist at Lincoln Hall. And she said, yep, at one point I wanted to be a baker. And then I wanted to work in finance and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden she came back to surgery, and then was like, nope, don't want to do surgery, want to do anesthesiology. And she took all these different paths and it eventually came to what she liked. And I said, one of the most impactful things she said to me was that even though you're going to be in med school, even though you're going to be taking all these difficult classes and you're going to face all these challenges that come with medicine, you're going to have a lot of rewards, but your life's still going to move on as you're going. It's never going to stop. Life is always going to move on, and you're always going to figure it out. And I thought you don't really hear that often because you look at doctors and you're like, they haven't figured it out. But she's like, no, you probably won't have it figured out at first. And that's okay, because life moves on. So it's definitely one of those things that I've actually held on to and appreciated so much about med careers. And I think just the whole experience overall, the class itself at Lankenau is taught, I mean, they're all taught by nurses, and my teacher, she was a nurse for actually 12 years and worked with pediatrics and kids all day long, and she has all this experience that she's able to like tie in with all our lessons. Like, we learn about medical abbreviations and we watch surgeries and all that stuff, and then she's able to be like, yeah, I saw this in person, or hey, this is what they say, but like in the real world, this is what you're going to use. So it's nice that she's the kind of like gives like that like human aspect of it. It's not like you're going to be reading like a textbook. We have a textbook if we need, but like none of it's textbook based, because it's more like hands-on. She's like, this is what you're going to want to learn. This is what you need to learn. This is what you need to know. So the whole experience overall is probably like the best thing, like I said, in high school. And I would definitely say to keep going with it. So yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I can't believe you didn't even mention the 6:15 bus.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I hate that bus. I'm like, oh. Like I get up. I hate it. But I was talking to Mr. Donaghy the other day about it, and I was just saying how yeah, it's annoying, but also like if you can't get up for a 6:15 bus, how are you gonna make it in the medical field? Because none of the jobs, like the medical field, is not 9 to 5. No, in no way, shape, or form is it 9 to 5. So having that 6:15 bus, it's like yeah, it's early, but like also if you can't get up at that time, like. Really, come on, just do it. Just do it. Suck it up and do it. But yeah, does anyone else have any questions?
Any questions or comments?
Just thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
You are a great spokesperson.
Yeah.
This is great. Yes, I love your enthusiasm, and it's very genuine.
No notes too. That's impressive.
And I believe I read that RJ may have been on that list of National Technical School Honor Society. Is that correct? Yes. So also earning that honor as well. Do you mind if I share about the science?
Science.
He also is a member of our National Science Honor Society. So he represents lots of different ways to learn and lots of successes. So thank you for sharing that with us this evening.
Yeah, and just to build on that, they have a Honor Society induction at the tech school each year, and it's really cool to see students maybe make that Honor Society who don't have the opportunities to make a National Honor Society, but in their field that they choose, they excel in. So it's really cool to see, and they do a ceremony each year. And then this is just a website that we always, send out and give to the students, and it's very robust. It's easy to understand, and it has, a lot of pictures and videos where you can actually see what's going on at the technical schools. Do you guys have any questions for me about how anything works?
I just had a comment. I'm excited to hear that there's a welding program because there's a huge shortage of
Yes.
welders.
Well, it's super popular, as they can tell you, and they do have a waiting
list.
list.
That's like a real need in the labor market, so I'm really glad to hear that. It's a highly lucrative career too. So that's kind of exciting. And the same thing, the medical program, we have a huge shortage of health-related workers.
Sure.
And so that's a great way to get involved in that. So I'm glad to hear that. That's like a really important way to get our students in the labor market in places where they're really in demand. So that's great.
And we get local businesses call constantly and ask for technical education students. Do you have any automotive or do you have any of this and that? And they've been getting jobs very quickly.
I believe it. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, when I look at the programs, there are some that I know the district has been looking for good employees to fill certain positions. I'm thinking like we could get some culinary and the different mechanical trades. I do see there's an early childhood ed. I know one of the ideas that's been percolating here is to have more pipelines to the education field. Is this early childhood ed an exposure for people who want to go on and teach maybe K to 12, or is there an avenue?
Sure. Well, we do have students that do their early childhood program, but that's a thing. Like Dr. Rouge was talking about, we also have our little mini preschool program at the high school too. So that's a thing where courses, we see what we can offer and what they can offer, and so some of our students stay and do our program, and then others go and do their program. So it's different types of students who are in the different types of programs. So that's probably why we only have 1 or 2 students in that at the IU, because we do have something similar, not exactly what they have. They have, they have their own preschool program there where kids come, from all over the county. So we have similar, but it's smaller at the high school.
Thanks. I think one of the things that just impresses me, and I, as a board, and I think just as the community, is all of the coordination and the logistics that go into, like, it's not just the high school is one thing, everybody walks in the door. It's kids taking advantage of opportunities. Yes. And all of the help that the administration does to make sure that they have those opportunities and paths. So that really came across and is appreciated.
Good, thank you. All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Donaghy, would you mind passing the clicker over? Thanks. Great.
Thanks for including the students.
Yeah, thank you.
That was great, thank you. And as everyone's transitioning out, I will just say, in my own experience with the Delaware County IU, it has, I have monthly meetings that I attend with that group led by Dr. Mundy, who is here speaking. We have also worked with them for professional development. We've had folks out from the Delaware County IU to help with our autistic support classes, with training teachers and behaviors, and training them and working with special education students. They help with curriculum development. They help build retreats and do all kinds of things. So it certainly is a range of services that not only does Pupil Services work with them, but we do it from the curriculum aspect as well as our leadership teams. So it's definitely been a valuable partnership. Okay, so we are on item 3 of 4 on the agenda, and I will, work our way through this this next item, which is our flexible instructional day application. So that term may sound familiar. It's actually one that's been around pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. The state had established an option for schools to apply to utilize what they called flexible instructional days in the event of an emergency, typically an inclement weather emergency, but really any event that can't be predicted that would require the closure of school buildings or impede transportation, or for some reason you couldn't get students into using the facilities. And so they've had this as a potential application for schools. First couple of years, only a couple of schools took advantage of applying. And then when the pandemic hit, actually a pandemic is one of the things you can use a flexible instructional day for. So they basically granted everyone the use of flexible instructional days without having had to apply during the pandemic. As the pandemic is shifting and changing, they are now going back to asking districts to actually apply to use this without assuming that there will be this umbrella acceptance because of a pandemic in the upcoming school year. It is something that once you've applied, it is good for the next 2 years, and then you can apply again after that. I shouldn't say once it's accepted. It's not just applying. You have to get approved too. So essentially that's what the next slide here just tell us about. This is directly from the website. Anyone can find it on there. It's essentially saying that it's really for emergencies. And this is really important. This is not expected to replace all inclement weather days. In fact, it's a requirement that districts continue to build in inclement weather days into their calendar. This is not to replace, your snow day, your typical snow day in all cases. Let me try and aim it in this direction. I was? Okay, oh, you know what it was? I was not working on my own. Now I'm back. Hold on, let's see. Okay, thank you. There we go. There are several notifications that have to occur as part of the process. Number one, we're bringing this to our board curriculum committee, notice of the application and its contents, which we will review. We will ask at our upcoming school board meeting that, of course, this presentation will be included in the summary, and then we will be asking for approval of the application. Once we have that approval from the school board, then we can submit it by the deadline, which is June 1st of 2022. And then we also post that on the website, and we will of course include it in our Haverford happenings, just so folks are familiar with it ahead of time and it doesn't come as a surprise in an upcoming school year should we have occasion to use these days. As far as if an actual flexible instructional day needed to occur, the notification process would be the same as what we have for inclement weather. So that's part of our application is we would use our school messenger system, our texting system, our website, all of the ways we typically communicate, and reach out to folks and tell everyone that that would be the case for that particular day. Of course, as we always try and do, we would try to notify folks as far in advance as possible, recognizing that as much notice is better, than less notice in even with a regular inclement weather day. So some specifics. What would a flexible instructional day actually look like? What we are proposing in our application is a combination of live synchronous instruction as well as independent asynchronous instruction. And there are a couple of purposes for that. Number one, we do want, when possible, for kids to exchange with their teachers, to have an actual interchange face-to-face, see their service providers, see their classmates. We are certainly in a different position now than if we were to have made that application prior to COVID. We have Zoom. We have people who are capable of using Zoom. We have Canvas. We have electronic forms of our curriculum and our curriculum materials. So that is possible. We would run what's called an early dismissal schedule. So, on those days where the kids get out early, they typically run either a shortened or a truncated schedule. And in this case, we're talking about shortening every period or every block. So students would still have each of their classes. They just have a shorter version of it for the live part. And then they would continue their work on that subject for an asynchronous period in the afternoon. So you just run the schedule as it usually would be. Students access, provided they have access to the internet and their devices, they would access the Zoom, start at the start time, learn from the teacher, and the teacher would tell them what to continue to work on in the afternoon. Related services would still occur as scheduled. And then we would ensure that we would have our instructional assistants assigned to the students or to the classrooms, working to support them if that was a service that students would already have gotten in a typical school day. And then the second half of the day is what we're calling independent or asynchronous learning, a term we're all too familiar with, I'm sure. And not only does this, is this, it's a typical part of learning. It's not every moment of every teaching block is a teacher talking, right? There's always students interacting with materials, students interacting with each other as part of learning. But we also wanted to be sure we had a contingency plan. So let's say, the internet's down at my house and I can't get into the Zoom. I can, however, call school and tell somebody I can't get into the internet, and my teacher can then have office hours in the afternoon where he or she can reach out to me and say, okay, here's the stuff we were working on. Here, what do you have at home? Here's what you can read instead, or let's talk through this thing, so that we have some availability to help for students who either were there and need some extra help or weren't able to be there, and now we have our chance to touch base with them. So that's sort of the outline of what the day would be planned to look like. They have asked, and it's always wise to have some contingency plans. I just talked about one thing, students without technology, how do they get access? We also will have teachers and educators, I should say, checking their email twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and their voicemail twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, just again, trying to scoop up anyone who wasn't able to attend for whatever reason. We also will have, as happens, there are days when maybe the educator doesn't have internet access at home. So in that case, wherever possible, if we can connect a substitute teacher in some way or get the kids into another teacher who teaches that class in some way, then great. But we also know that there may be occasions where for that class period, it might be more asynchronous work then for those students. And we just want to recognize that might be possible. Now is a good time for me to mention that there is a limit to flexible instructional days, thank goodness, right? We all want that limit. There are no more than 5 that can be used in a school year. So this is not about a long-term closure. This is about an emergency, and it's a short-term thing. We are not looking at going back to virtual learning or any of that we've had to deal with. That's not the same thing that we're talking about here.
Could I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is it district-wide, or could it affect one district whose power is out, or one school building whose power is out.
Yeah, I believe that the intention is for it to be district-wide. I think that, there are probably occasions where I'm thinking about, we had an elementary school that had a water issue, right? That all of a sudden we couldn't use it, so couldn't use the building. But every person was able to attend, but we couldn't use the building itself. So we would try to use that day for that school. I believe that the original intention is for it to be looked at district-wide. But we'll do our best to make it work and keep our kids learning no matter what. There's definitely more there. So there is another, let me just make sure I didn't accidentally miss.
FID responsibilities.
There we go, FID responsibilities, thank you. There we go. One of the items in the application is to list out what the responsibilities are for the educators as well as for the students. So we have them listed here. And obviously the educators will provide instruction and activities. And the important piece for the state is that those activities are related to your course standards. So it shouldn't be like a standalone lesson that the kids were never going to learn anyway if they were in school, right? It's, if you're learning about Shakespeare, then it may not be exactly the play you were working on, but it's some of the kinds of learning that you would have been doing in that period anyway. We will ask that educators facilitate live synchronous instruction following that schedule that we talked about. They are required to take and report attendance and facilitate that office hour time period that we were talking about as well. Of course, supporting students with alternate assignments for those who can't access the ones planned electronically, and checking voicemail and email. As far as the students are concerned, the expectations for the students are that they do, in fact, attend the live synchronous sessions when their technology allows them to do so, to actively participate and complete the school assignments, submit any independent assignments that they were supposed to be working on in the afternoon. That does not have to happen that evening. That could be something that the next time you return to school, then you can give us your afternoon assignments, if that's how the teacher assigns it. Also, they're expected to, if they are having trouble, go ahead and access that educator, call the school and let us know what we can be doing. And just make sure that if you were given an alternate assignment, you complete it. So those are the responsibilities of our educators and our students. When we were speaking with some teachers and some pupil services folks about these flexible instructional days, they had some questions just about under what circumstances might we find ourselves using a flexible instructional day as opposed to like what we'll call a regular snow day, right? A typical no school at all snow day. And so there are lots of considerations. And of course, especially in inclement weather, the goal is to continue, is always has been and it continues to be, to just get our buildings open, get them operational, and get people safely into school, right? That's always the priority. However, if the road conditions or the transportation or the timing of the weather makes it impossible for that to happen, then we have some things that you can see sort of in the bullet points to the right. These are among the things that would be considered when deciding whether or not to actually close school, no one does any work, or to use a flexible instructional day, which would be what we just described. One of those things is, at what point in the school year are we? Is this early winter? Is this midwinter? How much longer do we have to go? How many snow days, can we anticipate maybe? So that always makes a difference. Does it seem possible that we will need more than one day of this? And so, is there some combination of these that would be used? Is this a large storm? Is just predicted to be small and over and done with? What's the current impact of the storm? If there's a power outage in our community, we experienced that a little bit this year already, how likely is it that our families will have internet access? If that is the case, it might not be reasonable to have a virtual day. And have we utilized other inclement weather days so far, and how many? We are expected to still have those in our calendar, and so we need to think about how we've used them. Let's see, I believe that is all the information that we do include in the application. And so at this point, I'm happy to entertain any questions and answer what I can.
Well, I love that you're not getting rid of traditional snow days, but as a parent, but I also love that sometimes when you have too many in a row as a parent, you also are like, oh my goodness, I'm done with the snow and the snowmen. So I think I love how you put all the considerations in there, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know in the pandemic, when we were forced into thinking about learning remotely and what that would look like, there was an effort to survey the internet connectivity of different households and make sure people had the access to the internet and technology that they needed. Is that an ongoing kind of survey that we do periodically to make sure that if next year we needed a remote flexible instruction day, that we had some confidence that all of the kids in our schools would be able to connect in?
I am not aware of us having conducted that survey this school year, but we do have as part of the plan that we would continue to furnish hotspots. So we will need to ascertain who may need a hotspot and how would we get that to them in this instance, or would it be something that we would furnish to them ahead of time in the case that this may be necessary.
Right, and I can imagine in the elementary school, probably less online learning as part of a homework assignment or something like that, but that would probably be a good assessment to check in with, particularly like middle school and high school students early in the school year as they have assignments or projects that they're working on online outside of regular school hours, just to make sure that this and the rest of their curriculum is available to them.
I just had a quick question in terms of preparations for the teachers as well as the students. I'm thinking about elementary students. So let's just say if a flexible instructional day is on the radar, are we then having our teachers to remind our students, don't forget to take home your laptop or your tablet, don't forget your charger, because I just imagine that could be disastrous if no one has any of these tools to use. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why we would give as much notice as possible.
Okay.
And you're thinking just like a teacher, because that's one of their questions as well.
A
parent. A parent who has to say, what am I going to do with them? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Can you just remind me, how many traditional snow days do we have built in, or I guess we call them inclement weather days because it could be used for other things too, but is it 4?
3 or 4.
Okay, because we're required 180, but we usually have 184. Okay, just curious.
And Jen, just to confirm, this was, if there was, oh my God, knock wood, this would not be for any that would be a whole different
That would be a
category.
completely different.
It's
Yeah.
a short-term emergency situation. I think the best example, the water issues that we had at one elementary school, we were able to communicate to people, tomorrow will be a virtual learning day. People were able to bring things home with them. I'm hoping that one of the takeaways from this is that people see virtual instructional day is not the immediate go-to. It's not it is truly an emergency that you can then ensure that people are able to participate in it. So it's not a quick fix to a snowstorm that arrived during the evening and is a lot worse than what it originally was predicted to be. That may end up a snow day. That's not going to be a virtual learning day. But it's nice to have it as an option.
It's great to have it as an option.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And we do have one final item on the agenda that I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention, that we will be asking for approval of a renewal of services for Naviance College and Career Readiness Technology Solutions. And I do not have a PowerPoint for that one. Naviance is an online program where our middle and high school students utilize it to track their participation in college and career readiness activities as required by the state, but also to collect portfolio items for their career portfolio as required. And then if any of you have ever had a high school student, then you may know they also complete things like their letters of application, they make sure, their letters of recommendation go through Naviance. They can access transcripts, they can access how to find out about SAT scores. It really is a program that not only provides us with some content when it comes to college and career readiness, but also serves as a tool for organizing what is necessary for students to be prepared to apply for college or to enter careers. This is a renewal. We've been using, I know we've used Naviance since before I was here, which is about 7 years. And we've used it at the high school for that long. We did add it on at the middle school, I think it was about 4 years ago, when these college and career readiness standards came into effect. And at both of those levels, they find it very helpful as their tool to track and organize this information.
Can you clarify for me, how does it work for middle school? Like, it makes total sense to me for high school, but middle school, a little less clear.
Sure. In middle school, students are required to complete at least 2 activities per year in the area of college and career readiness, but also to assemble a portfolio, which includes their own interests so that they can try and start identifying career paths that may be of interest to them. And then their counselors help them access Naviance, help them complete those activities, and then help track those activities as they're done in there. And then they are moving to the high school with a career portfolio, which I mentioned is part of what's required by the state, in addition to those activities. And the activities are all kinds of things. It's a lot of learning about what careers are out there and available, what the pay is for certain careers, what the availability of those careers, what's growing, what's not growing, what colleges are looking for, what you might want to major in if you're considering a particular career. It really has a lot of content in there for students to get to know themselves and what they might like, as well as what's possible out there.
Kind of following Dr. McKay's question, so what are they doing? When did when did we start using that in middle school? Is that?
Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, something.
Okay, and when do they, because I'm embarrassed to admit I'm never having like a middle schooler there now and a son who went through the middle school. Is this something they do in homeroom? When would they?
Some of the activities are homeroom, some are during their developmental guidance, some of them are during an advisory period. Some of them are already assignments that they would have been doing in social studies or in English class, and so they are sort of integrated throughout.
I would be asking him about this.
Yes, yes, ask him about his career readiness, what he remembers.
And is that for all grades in the middle school?
Yes. This is a requirement. It's actually a requirement for 3rd through 12th, well, through 11th grade, to collect these pieces of evidence. It's our middle and our high school that use Naviance. Our elementary schools did try using Naviance, and it's just a little less user-friendly for elementary kids. And so we actually use, a different way to organize everything at elementary.
Is this going to be at the next meeting for a vote? Okay,
Yes.
just curious. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I'll just say for the committee and public benefit that the request will be for $20,000, which seems like a modest cost to be spread over the thousands of students we have in all of those grades. As someone who has a student who graduated high school last year, another feature of Naviance that I thought was fascinating was they have a plot of like a graph that shows students from the high school who applied to different colleges with their SAT and GPA, and then whether or not they got in. So it helps kind of calibrate the sense of like, oh, I could be successful applying here, or this one's West Stretch School. But yeah, it coordinates a lot of information, and it's not just a filing system. It gives a lot of information and context back that I think is helpful for the kids to navigate that process of thinking about what happens after their Haverford days. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So that concludes the 4 agenda items that we have for this committee meeting tonight. The next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to make a statement? No? Seeing none, we can conclude the meeting. Thank you. The meeting's adjourned.